Okay.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, welcome to the last class for this stage. So far, we've been looking at pattern recognition and pattern discovery in data analysis and visualization, and how you can incorporate it into your data storytelling. So for this class, we're going to continue with the data sets that we initially had, and we'll just try to analyze it from another dimension as well. Give me a minute, let me just share my screen, then we'll continue. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so for today, we're going to be trying to analyze our data sets, like based on the various regions, right? We'll try and do some geographical analysis, right? And just try to see how the various data points in our data set compare when we try to review them on a region basis. Okay. So first, you need to install the GeoPandas library, which allows us to work with geographical data. So I have this installed, just run a pip install, and you have it installed, and then you import it. I've given it this alias, right? And then we are good to go. And then from there, we will go ahead, because remember the goal of our analysis, the goal of this exploratory analysis is to try and discover patterns, right? We want to see, okay, so is there a cluster among certain regions? What's the behavior of our data and we try to view it on a region basis, right? That's just basically what we want to do. And that's why it's important to do this geospatial analysis. Okay, so I'm going to use this data set from the GeoPandas library that gives us like the coordinates for all countries in the world, and then we are going to filter for Africa. So that's basically what this is. I'm going to have all the boundaries for all the countries in the world, but basically I want to limit it to only the continent Africa. So that's what this does. So I'm just going to, and then we will have a, let me do this so that we can see. So I'll run this. And we see that what we have is a geo data frame, which is different from the pandas data frame that we've been working with, but it's not so different. A lot of the operations that we can do on pandas, we can easily do with this as well. So you will not really need to learn so much. You just a lot of things, a lot of the selection methods that you use with the pandas data frame, you can equally use with the geo data frame. So we'll go ahead and use our head method just to see what that data frame looks like. So we see all of this, and this is really, the geometry is really what we need because this is what is going to be plotting the map for us, right? And then we have the continent, and we did specify that we wanted it to be Africa. If we take a look at the world, we'll see that there are various continents in there. So moving on, what we want to do, like I said, is we want to work with our food production data sets that we have been working with all along. And we have done a couple of analyses, tried to understand the growth rate of certain crops. We've tried to understand like you've seen average production and all of that. So yes, this is the data set we're going to be working with. And there are a couple of approaches that we can take when we're using the GeoPandas library, and we want to use Altate to like do our visualizations, right? So there's like two approaches, right, that I'll talk to us about that we can take. We can either merge the data sets when we want to plot them, so that we are working from one data frame, right? And it has to be the geodata frame. It's the way that our coordinates are going to be plotted, or we can decide to use lookup data sets. Okay, so I'm going to use both and then show us how it really works. So to merge the data sets, right? Let's see if this is still accessible. Okay, yeah, everything is in order. So let's do this. Let's try and pick. Probably let's also drop that to our produced column. Okay. Okay, what we want to do, like I said, is we want to merge, because now we have the various countries here, and we have the coordinates that we are going to be plotting, right? But what we want to do now is we want to merge with what we have in our data sets, right? So we use the pandas merge. When I use that, we can just decide, because I said at the end of the day, you want to ensure that it's a geodata frame you end up with. So we're going to use merge on Africa. right? Merge it with this, then specify columns we want to merge it on. One thing I would like to do is I'd like to change this name to country, just so that we don't have to be doing a lot of separate merging, right? Merging by different names along the way when we continue. So I'll just do a rename. Okay. So now we'll go ahead and do a merge on this. Okay. So you can, at this point, right, let's call this data frame 1. So what we will do next is we'll try to take a look at, we've done a merge at this point, right? But do we know if all our countries have been merged? So what we can do is try to look at the shape before we started and the shape afterwards. So let's look at the shape before we started and then the shape afterwards after we did the merge. And we see that there's a difference, right? There's a huge difference. A couple of rows were dropped in the course of our merging. That's to say that there might be some discrepancies that we have not looked out for. So what we will do is try to take a look at the various countries in the Africa data frame and then try to also look at what we have here and see if everything is matching perfectly, right? Okay, so what we can do to make the process a lot easier is we can try to use the set quality of checking the difference between two sets, right? So I'll just do that. And now I can see the difference between the country and our data frame. I can see that Cape Verde is not there, Central African Republic, all of these countries are not included in our Africa data set. So what we can do is try to get a sense of how they are represented within this data set. And so we'll see that this is not included here. Central African Republic, on the other hand, can anyone spot Central African Republic? Okay, I think I've spotted it. It's here. And then this as well. Can anyone spot this? I mean, we can save ourselves the stress and just try to do missing countries, right? Mm. Yeah, that won't work. The point is that it wasn't even in data frame initially. Anyways, I was going to even go ahead and do a maybe lowercase type of situation, but we might discover that some of the issues here are beyond lowercase. So let's just do the manual work. Sometimes data cleaning means doing manual work. So let's do that and let's just try to figure it out. So I don't think this is there, but if you guys see it, please let me know. Cote d'Ivoire. Yeah, okay,
Cote
this
d'Ivoire
is
is there.
okay. Cote d'Ivoire is there. All right. So we know that we have Central African Republic. We know that we have Cote d'Ivoire. Let's create a mapping that we are going to use to map the new names. So I know that Central Republic is represented as this. And this, okay, so I'll just copy this very quickly. Then we saw Cote d'Ivoire, so we can copy that as well. Map it to this. And then, which other country do we have? I think we have, okay, I've seen them.
Congo.
Yeah, so we'll do that. Which other country can we spot?
South
There are
Sudan.
two Congos. There are two
As
Congos in the other one. Democratic Republic of Congo and then Congo.
Okay, no, we'll use Democratic Republic of Congo. We'll map it to that.
we have
Then,
South Sudan.
okay,
That's
South,
Sudan.
okay, South, okay, I think I've seen that. All right, so we'll map that to South Sudan. All right, I think we're good at this point. So, for the rest of the countries, I think that some of these, okay, some of these are actually um let's see the location of this on the African map. I can just do a quick Google search on the map. Okay. Okay, so these are more like island countries, right? So for this particular, to keep things simple, we will not be including those in our mappings, right? So we'll go ahead and let go of those countries that we have not been able to map for now. But of course, there are ways to include them in our map if we want to. But for now, the data set provided to us does not include those island countries. So to keep things simple, we exclude them as well. So for I want us we've now that we've gotten this, we need to replace it in our Africa data set. So that's what we're just going to do now. Go ahead and replace it. We specify that it's the country we want to replace. And then specify what we want to replace. We can change. Okay. So let's set it back to and then we can try to run this again and see what we have to do. I think yes, this is what I copied it. I don't think that should give us okay. So now if we run this, okay, so we'll just let go of these 5 countries for now. And then we'll go ahead and let's remove this. We don't need this. We'll go ahead and do our merge on countries and see how that improves things. Okay, so that's good. And now with a merged data set, the geodata frame, yes, with a merged data frame rather, we are going to go ahead and plot. Let's say we want to understand like um let's say we want to see how much of a particular crop was produced across the various countries in a particular year. So that's the question we want to answer first. We want to say how much sugarcane, let's say sugarcane, was produced in the year 2021 across the different countries. So first thing first, of course, we're going to filter for 2021. Which is the DF1, right? I think we have that up here somewhere. But either way, let's get it. Okay, now we'll go ahead and let's take a look at our data frame first, of course. Okay, so we said we want to know like for sugarcane, I think, yeah. How is Okay. So this is the chart that we use. The MarkGeo shape allows us to plot the graphical data. Then we'll go ahead and do this. We'll use encodings to specify like what we want to filter for. So we're looking at we said sugarcane, right? We want to select only sugarcane, and we want to see for each of the countries, because now we're only going to have one country. Since we filtered out all the other years in our data set, we're left with one country instance per year, right? So we now want to see what was the ton that was produced for a particular, what was the ton that was produced for sugar, how much ton of sugar cane rather was produced for the different countries. So basically this is going to be sugar cane. Then I can decide to use tooltip, right, to see I'll just take that out. Let's just plot it cleanly and see what we have. Okay. Okay, so this is what we have. We see that Morocco is up there, right? And we see Mozambique as well. So it would be interesting to know which is the highest, right? Interesting, it looks like they both have the same value. It does look like they both have the same value. So one thing that we can do is try to look at our data sets, right? So we have DF21. We can try to sort values, sort it by sugarcane. I think this is taking us from, let's do, okay. So yeah, it does look like Morocco and Mozambique had the same amount for the year 2021. It would be interesting to know what the behavior was for the year 2020. I mean, we can leave that and then just create another. We say similar behavior. So which can either mean that there's something wrong with our data set, or it can mean that, I mean, it's very interesting, to be honest. This is how analysis can lead us to either see patterns, or it can lead us to see possible issues with our data sets. So in this case, I'm just going to inspect I want to compare both values for, I want to pull up both values for just for both countries basically and see what we have. So let's see. We're looking at Mozambique and Morocco, I think. Okay. One thing we can try to do is we can try to melt this so that we see, we have the DF melt. I'm just going to copy it from where it was up here where we used it. So we'll specify that this should be 3. Then we'll specify, okay, that we want to do that along the region of, yeah, I think I'm going to see if Pandas allows us to specify a list there, because that is basically what we want to do. So this is taking a bit of time. I'm going to pause this for now. If we still have time, we'll come back to it. Otherwise, I'm sharing this data set with you. So basically what you can do is, I'm sure there's going to be a way to, yeah, the network is not allowing us to be great anyway. So what we want, you can try to keep the country and the year, melt everything else so that we can see if the values do compare like one to the other, right? Or either ways, we can trust that the data set is actually correct because like I said, this is not impacting work decisions. So, and already there's to some degree, we don't expect that this is accurate data, it's just for practice. So moving on though, I want to quickly show us how some other things that we can do with Altair, right, when we are trying to plot geographical data. So I showed us what happens when we merge it. Another thing that we can do is we can use lookups, right? So in the case of a lookup, this is what it would be like. So I have it here where we specify the geodata frame, which the geometry column is what will be used to plot our map. And then we use the transform lookup, right, to specify another data frame. So there's no need to merge. You have the Africa data frame, you have the data frame containing the the data points that you are interested in, like viewing on like a map basis, right? So when you have that, what you can do is use the transform lookup, right? And specify for the Africa data sets, right? What value, the two columns, the way that you would do it in a merge, where you need the two columns that you want to perform the merge, use as a lookup. So you look in this data frame and see that it matches the other data frame. So those two columns that you typically use for your merging is the same way that it works here. This, you specify the lookup here, and then you also specify the lookup data as well as the key, right? Which should match this, right? The values in there and in here should match this. And then you specify the fields that you want to work with. So this is what's happening here. I'm just going to plot the same graph here, DF20 probably. Okay, so I'll uncomment this. And we'll fix up some things. Yes, we change this to country. Change this to DF20. Then we specify, I think we're working with sugarcane, right? So we can specify that. So we see that this is another way to work with this, right? This this approach is a lot more convenient and allows us to, why this approach is important is that we can decide, okay, I want to see everything, like all the crops at once within my data set, right? So like what we've been doing is we've been picking specific, we've picked specific like crops and tried to understand um how it's placed, right? But then let's say that we want to have a look at other crops within our data sets, like maize, rice, yams, all of that. We want to have a look at it as a goal. Or let's say we want to look at, let's not overwhelm things. Let's just say maybe with the first maize, let's look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 perhaps. Let's look at 6. So let's say we want to do that. So one thing that we can do first is we can use um the Altair library has what is referred to as the repeat charts, right? That allows us to um, repeat various, it's not necessarily repetition because it's not going to be the same thing, right? But we can plot, we can access various columns and represent the data for those various columns, right? So that's what is happening here. You can, like I said, we see the documentation. There's a lot of things here that can be useful. Something else that we have not looked at, mapping points, as well as this. This is an interesting visual that you can work with. And it's pretty easy. Just come to the documentation, understand the example, and then you can use it in your example as in your work as well. So what we'll do here is basically, first we need to specify the columns that we want to work with. So like I said, let's pick I have it specified here already. I picked the columns and then I picked up until the last one, but this time around I would rather pick from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I'd rather pick up until 7, right? So what I will do next, let me just uncomment this. Yes, and then basically the same transform lookup, then the repeat Then resolve scale lets us know that the scale is color is independent. Lets us know that for all the different rows that we're going to have, rows of visuals that we are going to have, the colors are distinct. Like you're going to see, we can as well take this out and keep it so that you see the effect that it has on the charts that we're going to plot. So let me just quickly confirm that we have everything we need. So this is going to be, I think it was 1. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Then this as well. So we can see this. We can view some consistency with some regions as far as certain types of crops are concerned. Where did I see 0 just now? Okay, but then we can see some consistency with with certain regions, right? You can see some crops that are spread out within various regions. I mean, if someone is asking you what's the crop that has the capacity to do well across various um, African regions, you can take a look at this and say, okay, based on production in the past year, I think that um, this might be a crop that you want to look into because production in this country, production was high in these various countries, right? And it's spread across various regions. Something interesting too would be a cluster in certain regions, right? So that's and also something interesting. Let us know, okay, so is a certain crop meant to do well in maybe a certain part? Are some crops going to perform better in maybe South Africa, West Africa, North Africa, or stuff like that? That's how this is useful to us. So I haven't exhausted what we can do with this. This is just like an introduction to what's possible. I expect that for this particular project that you've been asked to work on, we've decided that it's okay for you to work on this same data set as opposed to finding other data sets because there are lots of things that can be done. So I don't expect that there's going to be copied work. Please. And I also don't expect that someone is going to pick this notebook and give it to me verbatim as well. Please, it's for your own good to try and explore these things and try to come up with interesting questions. You can narrow things down, pick specific regions that you're not interested. Maybe you might not be interested in the a whole continent view, right? The way we are doing the whole of Africa. You might not be interested. That's okay. You want to focus on a particular region. That's fine. So, but then the point is there are various angles from which you can explore this data set. And so we want to see how creative you can get. Okay. So, okay, so this does give us the option of using a list. So yeah, you can definitely specify a list here. Okay, at this point, right, do we have questions? I'm going to try to share the data set with us. Do we have questions? One thing I don't think I talked about was some of these settings, right? You can filter it. I mean, if you look at the documentation, you figure it out. You can filter, you can decide, you can customize it the way that you would prefer. So I've specified the stroke here, which is responsible for the black lines. When I removed it in this case, I didn't have any separation of the various countries, which I don't like. I prefer to see, because the whole point is that we want to see you analyzing like on a region basis, right? So we want to see the separation of the various countries. Makes more sense that way. Some people would say it's too cluttered, but it really does depend on the goal of your analysis. Okay, so do we have questions? Someone is saying, can we try sorting? How do you mean? Hello, Michael. You can unmute yourself and talk, please.
Yes, hello. It was when you were it was when you were working on I think the wrangling, trying to sort out the countries and comparing the countries in the DF and the African dataset group. So we were looking at it visually. So I was thinking it would be much easier if you had sorted maybe alphabetically, so you could trace them much easier that way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You see that sometime, but thank you. All right, so I'll drop this in. Let me stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to drop this in the group chat. Let's see that I can do that right now. So I believe there are no more questions because this is the chance to ask questions if you do have them concerning the project or okay, so just like last time, please be on the lookout. I'll drop this in. I'll drop this, and then last time, because I had issues with my connectivity, I couldn't drop it quickly. But yeah, I'll drop this and then I'll take it to 5 minutes after top. Lovely day. Bye, guys.